good evening. It's Jomar, and I hope you've been pretty well since the last time I put up one of these. I mean, it sounds like a long time, but really it was only just over a week ago because I was trying it out, and I said, I might make this a weekly item. Possibly. We might do that. But for tonight, I just figured I'd go ahead and resume and pick up where we left off last time, although there was really nowhere to pick up from because I was merely just talking about setting this up and trying to see if I could post a little more often. So this is just another one of those casual conversations, if you will, although it's one-sided. I wish I could hear what you have to say, but unfortunately, I'd have to probably get some more advanced programming or finish my degree up in some kind of automation or some kind of artificial intelligence or something that could probably accommodate to being able to listen to you. But anyways, I figured, and I just sort of thought about something because this might be an interesting idea to try for comparison for myself, and maybe just to see what runs through the mind. Because right now it's about 10 o'clock, just after 10 o'clock in the evening rather, and so I will actually be heading to bed shortly, getting up early tomorrow for work. But what I might actually do is split this up in two parts. I'll do one part tonight, and if I can get up either tomorrow morning early enough or the following morning or sometime this week early enough and just compare and see how the conversation goes. I certainly will try not to listen to this one in the morning and see how things turn out, to see how my thought process comes out. Because, you never really realize what you sort of think about during the day or at a certain time of day until you really listen to yourself, perhaps. And oftentimes, we never usually listen to ourselves. So I guess this might be an opportunity to put that to the test, if there will really be any result. My hypothesis, well, actually, I don't have any hypothesis. I don't have any guesses. If you have any particular guesses at this time, well, keep them in mind. I can't really hear them now, but it's interesting what the working world does to you, because right now for me 10 o'clock is somewhat late, especially if I go any later now, because I usually get up early in the morning at about 4 or 5, and so this will be a really interesting test when I do this recording at some point, hopefully, fingers crossed, to see what happens and how I sound like and what I do in the morning. Anyway, so I'm assuming that, just a real quick plug to my environment right now, if you're tuned in for the first time and you didn't catch the previous recording of myself, you may have heard, or actually, no, I was saying if you didn't hear it, then you wouldn't have heard all these bizarre sounds happening in the background, so you wouldn't know where I would have been seated. So, just as a quick reiteration to tell you and to establish some kind of placement of, I don't know, just situation. If you really want to know what I'm doing right now, really, I'm just sitting on a couch in my house basement. I'm back home in my hometown currently because I'm on co-op. I'm on a work term, as opposed to my studies, which I'll resume back in September. And I'm just sitting here in my basement, just on a couch in the middle of a couch and staring at a wall. Basically sounds very depressing, but no, don't worry. If I keep my eyes closed, though, I won't even think about this wall. I'll kind of just think about recording something, and I'm in the studio or something, in the studio, or just sitting at my dinner table having a meal. Although I wouldn't really be talking like this if I were having food, just something, just sitting around and taking it easy, if you will. So, it's just that kind of easygoing environment. If you manage to catch the first one, I could recommend saying listen to the first one so you can go sort of get a bit of context as to what in the world I'm doing here, and basically just going off and talking. And that sound you hear in the background is the furnace. It's probably the full, so I'm not sure how loud it is and how prominent it is here in this recording. But yeah, that's the furnace. Today, I'll give you some perspective as to how Canadian winters are if you aren't already in Canada. This morning, it was, and actually later on in the evening as well, and I'm talking Lake Ontario sort of Canada, because we somewhat hit, I think we hit the double digits, the negative double digits, probably about minus, I think they said it was minus 14 or 13 this morning, and it felt like minus 20, and this is all in Celsius, by the way. So I think the Fahrenheit comparison would probably be somewhere almost around there. I think it's just below freezing. Probably around in the zeros or something like that. But it was cold, and you could really feel it, especially if you were just standing and doing nothing. So that's quite something. But then again, I guess we've gotten so used to all of our Canadian winters so far for the past weeks. Actually, I think February was quite a month for weather because we had some of the nastiest storms, at least in our perspective, since, yeah, or at least in years. Because previous years, typically there'd only be maybe one or two major storms, an ice storm, a late bloomer, or some kind of regularly scheduled storm or something happening January, February, or whatnot. But this year, based on how many school days off the kids have had, it's been interesting. And plus, now that, for me, being in the working world now, commuting to work, when you don't get snow days and you can't just simply take the day off because you don't have school buses or anything. Because I was a school bus fella for most of my time in elementary and high school. Actually, all of high school and about probably just under half of elementary school. If we missed it, or if they were canceled for the day, my parents would never send me out, and we wouldn't bother trying to head to school anyway. Albeit that we wanted to go there, but sort of to our somewhat sort of a dismay. But now with the working world, you can't simply do that. You'd say, here's the snow. We're going to have to prepare. Thankfully for me, I guess this is sort of the advantage of not driving. Was just all I had to do was probably just very carefully step down the driveway and face what instead of would be cleaning your car in your driveway would be stepping over about 3-foot high piles of snow. Just these knee-high, almost chest-high piles of snow in some cases too. And these were blocking the bus stops. So it wasn't easily just, you could walk around them or something, or stand on the roadway just to catch a bus. And in some cases, we did have to step on the roadway and stand there because the sidewalks had never been cleared out. The bus shelters were sort of just behind these high piles of snow. You couldn't even get into the shelter because the whole pile was just there. And this lasted for some time, and I eventually got used to it. But, I started telling myself, thank goodness I never ended up getting into any particular troubles, slipping or anything in and around those bus shelters. So it was a time. It was a wild time, I will definitely say. We're going now for, wow, look at that, 7 minutes. But again, I don't think about the time, I just think about having a good conversation. And, you could probably almost count this as an excuse for me to be able to rant and record my ranting for something. Because I never usually rant out to people. If you ever were to know me, I'd probably just talk about something, but I never usually would rant on insanely. And you probably will come to know, maybe if I were to pursue this even more, that ranting would be one of the last things I could do, although I'd be beating around the bush, but that's a very different story compared to ranting, because beating around the bush would be me using all this flowery and, excessive language just to try and get a simple point across, and I admit it myself, sometimes I'd be long-winded more so than just trying to get straight to the point, which is something that I'm still working on, but I guess it's just the vocabulary that sometimes gets the better of me at times. But anyway, that's just a little bit of me. And nothing much else, I think, for tonight, except I imagine it'll be a little bit warmer, and warmer would be the term. Cooler would be that the temperature goes even lower, which I don't mind as long as there's not much precipitation, snow, ice, hail, etc., freezing rain, any of that kind of stuff that typical Canadians would, or any of us Canadians would basically be trying to expect and anticipate. But it's still good. We do enjoy our winters. Most of us do. Of course, if you have to go end up cleaning some stuff off your driveway or your car, things that freeze over, then not so fun. I remember the funniest story that I've had so far with this winter was one of our company vehicles. We had been trying to clean it off because it was sitting outside in the parking lot, I think all winter. I don't think it had been used even before our winter began. So here we were cleaning all the snow and the ice off of it, and these massive chunks of ice around the windshield area. So we said we'd try to go ahead and clear as much of it off as we could. And then one of my coworkers decided to try and run the windshield wipers to get them to go, but because it was so frozen over in that area, then they wouldn't even go all the way up to clean any of the stuff off the windshield. So we continued to try and clear more of this ice, and we really dug into the front of the windshield and tried as much as we could, and still the windshield wipers weren't going. We figured maybe there was something caught under the hood or some more ice that was built up somewhere that was preventing the wipers from going, and we said we'd probably let the mechanic do it. So we call this mechanic out. Mechanic comes out, and this is an in-house mechanic, so we didn't actually go out to a body shop and, pay someone to do it. So our in-house mechanic comes out and begins and telling us and says, try running the wipers, turn them on, and see what happens. Turns them on, and sure enough, we see it. It doesn't go all the way up. It doesn't go all the way, all the way out to the other end of the windshield. So what he does, he says, keep running it. And all of a sudden, you see this guy, he starts pulling and yanking at the windshield wipers. And we're thinking, though, good luck with that, because that probably was one of the fastest ways to be able to ruin these wipers. Like, you saw this guy, he was basically yanking them really, really hard. So, and at the end of it all, I think, sure, we did get it to go through, but then all of a sudden you started hearing the wipers not, first you saw the wipers not going up anymore, and then you started hearing the motor sort of just buzzing. It was struggling, and it just didn't want to move. So, at the end of that, I still remember it so well. It was really funny. Just at the moment, at the time, it was so funny just watching the wipers fail to go up. And then he brought it in, so he brought it into the garage and tried to fix it and cleared a bunch of ice. Sure enough, we saw a lot of ice that was left over there, and it wasn't cleaned. And then he says, okay, I think I fixed it. We saw the ice that was on the floor, and he said, okay, this might work. He turns it on, and the same problem happens. The motor still was going through, and you couldn't hear, and you didn't even see the wipers move an inch. You had to pull them. So he said, maybe what if we just tie a cord to one of these wipers and have the passenger or somebody, when the driver yells to get the wipers on it in some fashion. I won't do it now because it's really late at night. But then the passenger would probably just yank at the cord, and you'd see the wipers go up and come right back down again. Because down is no problem, and it was no problem. But going up, it needed a little bit of force. So we said, you know what, we're not going to go and step out for the day. We just postponed it, and eventually, I think the following day or the day after, I think it was the following day, they somehow got it fixed, but I'll bet they replaced the parts. I think that's what happened. They changed out the whole motor, and that solved it. But yeah, that was quite something. So far, one of my more interesting stories of this winter. I mean, there have been a bunch more with me sliding across the ice and, all those sorts of things, but I guess there wasn't much to describe. There wouldn't be much to describe with them. I could probably tell you them sometime, but anyway, I think I might probably hit the bed. I feel like right now my eyes are actually closed, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this at some certain time of the evening when you can't even keep your eyes open, like they feel dry or something, or when you simply just try to open them, but then they just come right back shut and closed again. That's me right now. So my eyes are actually closed. So if you were to picture what I'd be doing right now, I'm basically sitting in the middle of a couch, or kind of closer to the right, but just sitting here with my eyes closed, holding this recording device and staring or basically facing a wall. There's a coffee table, just like the last recording, if you were listening, if you tuned in that one. And yeah, just a bit of distance between myself, this table, and then this table and the wall, and that's it. You just see a guy with his eyes closed, and you're thinking, what's this guy doing? Is he is he doing a vocal demo or something in the basement in the middle of the night, or whatever the case is? But anyway, I'll probably be on my way, and I'll catch you in the next morning when I do try this in the morning. So, note to you, future self Joe Mar, this is how you sound like in the evening. Anyway, you have a good night. I'll catch you later. Okay, good morning. We're here. I made it. It is pretty early morning. If I was rolling video, I could probably show you a clock right now, but it currently is probably about 5:23, 24. Let me just check. I just pulled up my phone beside me. 5:24 in the morning. That is, not the evening. So I really did stay to it, and it is the following morning. It is a Tuesday morning. However, here's the catch. It's the next Tuesday morning, because originally what I had planned was I wanted to go and get up the following morning, like the Tuesday immediately following the Monday, so that 5th of March, or the one last week, really. And I never actually got to it at all during the past week. I think I mentioned I would try to get this sometime later on in that week, but I never actually got to because I kept getting up so late. And I was usually running for my work, for the bus to get to work almost every single day, which was really bad for my case. And I know that I shouldn't be doing that all too often. That's the advanced 5:30 that went off upstairs. But yeah, I finally made it. Here I am. And I said, you know what? Okay, sure. It's okay of timing. And I could totally pretend that today is the day following that first Monday when I did the first half of this recording. So anyway, it is morning, and I am here. I have made it. Same place, same location, nothing has changed. I would say, though, that it technically really is about 4:24 or 4:25 because of the fact that we actually recently went through that day when the clocks would go forward an hour. So we all lost an hour's sleep on Sunday. And yeah, so with that logic, it technically is about 4 something this morning, but we're all making it think like 5. We're all making it feel like 5 now because of that shift, and it feels interesting. On Sunday especially, it just hit me really hard. I don't know if it's the working world or if it's just the time shift in general, but it's never hit me this hard, where you get up in the morning and you think it's a certain time, but then all of a sudden, you realize it isn't anymore, and it actually is you know what I mean, the time with the additional hour added on top. Because when you go to university or go to classes and you make the clock adjustment, you're sort of thinking, okay, well, we're here, everyone's made it, they've adjusted their clocks, or this fellow's not here, they didn't adjust their clocks, but you don't really feel physically anything different. But then when you get to the working world, it's sort of like you get in on, even yesterday, actually, I still felt the effects of it. I got up, I got in, and then I sort of felt like I was in, super early or something, which technically I would have been because it would have been 6:30 by the time I arrived. But then what was funny was during lunchtime, I, for some reason, felt like it was still 11 o'clock, and which really it was if you didn't move the hours around. And then sure enough, someone comes and says, hey, Jomar, it's time for lunch. I look at the clock, it's 12, and I think, gee, the time has flown really quickly, only to realize that, yes, it is 12 because of the time shift. And I tell you, that hour just does a lot of things. So it was rather an interesting day that day, so that was something. Anyway, I mean, I'll be off shortly, but I figured I would continue on with this. I'm trying to think if there's anything else notable that's happened. It's mostly just been usual work and university selection. So this past Saturday, I took or at least we accompanied my younger brother because he's choosing his post-secondary, his university, where he'd like to go for next year. So he's been going to open houses for the past weekends. He went to one this past Saturday. I think he plans on doing another one this coming Saturday. And so we've just been going out and preparing drives and all that stuff. So taking him out because he still is in the process of getting his license as well. So, I mean, I've been mostly doing a lot of the driving, a fair amount of it. My dad and I, we usually take turns and we alternate, and or sometimes I might do more of it because I'm sitting there and I feel like I may as well get to the destination and finish the drive section. So, things like that. But it's been a pretty good week so far. So if I were to compare these back to back, then going back to the purpose of this style or this edition of the recordings of myself here in the basement, I don't know if I sound anyhow different. Probably I still haven't had my morning coffee, that's one thing, or any sort of morning beverage for that matter. So we'll come to find out, however this ends up sounding like. But anyways, I think I should be good for now. I will probably catch you in the next of my recordings of sort. And yeah, we'll catch you later.